Have you ever stopped to think about the common frog? You know, the one you might see hopping around in your garden? Well, you should, because it turns out this familiar little creature is anything but ordinary. It is an absolute marvel of adaptation. So, let's get right into it.
Here's the big question we're going to tackle. What exactly makes a frog a master of two completely different worlds? How can one animal be so perfectly at home on dry land and underwater? That's what we're going to find out by looking at how every single part of a frog is engineered for this incredible double life.
And a great place to start is with this guy, the Indian bullfrog. It's a fantastic example of an amphibian. You know, the name itself, amphibian, kind of gives the game away. Amphi means dual, and bios means life. So they are literally creatures of a dual life, built to thrive in both freshwater and on land. So, to really get how they pull this off, we've got to look at their core survival strategies. This is the stuff that lets them handle just about anything their environment throws at them. Okay, first thing you need to know, frogs are poikilotherms. That's the fancy scientific term for what we usually call cold-blooded. And what that means is they don't burn energy to keep a constant body temperature like we do. Nope, their body just matches whatever temperature it is outside. It's an amazing energy-saving trick. So, what about staying off the menu? Well, frogs are masters of disguise. They have this incredible ability to change their skin color to blend in perfectly with their surroundings. Think about it, bright green among the leaves or a muddy brown on the forest floor. It's a life-saving, disappearing act. And what if the weather gets, well, just too much, too hot or too cold? They just take a nap, seriously. But we're not talking about a quick doze. When it's scorching hot, they take a summer sleep called estivation. And in the freezing cold of winter, it's hibernation. For both, they just dig down into deep burrows and wait it out. How clever is that? These strategies are just incredible, right? But they're all backed up by the frog's physical body. So let's take a little tour of the frog's external toolkit. You're going to see that every single feature is a specialized tool for this amphibious life. All right, look closely. Everything on the outside has a job to do. Their skin is always smooth and moist, and we'll see why that's so important in a minute. Their body is super compact, just a head and a trunk, no neck, no tail. Those big bulgy eyes? They come with a built-in pair of goggles, this thin film called a nictitating membrane that protects them underwater. And hearing? No floppy ears for a frog. They have a flat circle on the side of their head called the tympanum that picks up sounds. And this is my favorite part about their skin. Get this, a frog never, ever takes a drink of water. It doesn't need to. It just soaks up all the water it needs right through its skin. I mean, its skin is a living, breathing, drinking organ. That's just wild. Now let's look at their limbs, because they're not all the same. Their front legs, the forelimbs, are smaller. They're for walking, for digging, for propping themselves up. But the real action, that comes from the hind limbs. They are way bigger, packed with muscle, and those 5 webbed toes make them the perfect engine for swimming and for those incredible leaps they're famous for. Okay, so we've covered the amazing exterior. Now let's head inside, because the frog's internal anatomy is just as efficient and just as perfectly adapted for survival. Inside, the frog is all about efficiency. Take its digestive system. It's pretty short, and there's a good reason for that. Frogs are carnivores. They eat things like insects, which are full of protein and break down really fast, so they just don't need a super long, complicated gut like a plant eater would. So, the journey for a bug is quick and to the point. It gets zapped by that sticky tongue, shot down the esophagus into the stomach where acid gets to work. Then it's through the intestine to absorb all the good stuff, and finally, any waste goes out through a single, all-purpose exit called the cloaca. See? Simple and effective. All right, now we get to what I think is one of the coolest adaptations of any animal on the planet. The secret to living in two worlds is, you guessed it, breathing in two worlds. A frog literally changes how it breathes depending on whether it's on land or in the water. So how in the world does it work? Well, when it's underwater, it breathes right through that amazing moist skin we talked about. That's called cutaneous respiration. But when it's on land, it uses a pair of lungs just like us, and it can even pull in air through its mouth. It's a true hybrid breathing system. It's just incredible. In keeping all this going is a really well-developed circulatory system. The heart has 3 chambers, and it's constantly pumping blood, nutrients, and all that vital oxygen everywhere it needs to go around the body. So what's coordinating this whole amazing biological machine? A super advanced command center. The frog's nervous and endocrine systems work in perfect harmony to manage everything from hunting a fly to shutting down for winter. And its brain is well protected inside a bony case called a cranium, giving it all the smarts it needs to survive.
Now, when it comes to making more frogs, the systems are super organized in both males and females. And here's that efficiency thing again. Remember that single exit, the cloaca? Well, it's not just for waste. It's also where the reproductive cells, sperm and eggs, leave the body. One exit for everything.
So, to wrap this all up, let's talk about the frog's legacy. How it goes from a tiny egg to become one of the most important players in the entire ecosystem. Okay, prepare yourself for this number. A single female frog can lay somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 eggs at one time. That's a staggering amount, and it's a strategy to make sure that at least a few of them make it all the way to adulthood.
And that journey is a total transformation. It starts with an egg in the water. From that egg hatches a tadpole, which is basically a little swimming fish with gills. Then the real magic happens, metamorphosis. That tadpole slowly transforms, growing legs, losing its tail, and becoming the adult frog we know.
So, after all that, why should we care so much about frogs? Because they are absolutely essential. They eat a ton of insects, which means they're like a natural pest control service for our crops. At the same time, they're food for everything from birds to snakes, making them a super important link in the food web. Honestly, having frogs around is a sign of a healthy planet, and they work hard to keep it that way. Which brings us right back to where we started. After everything we've seen, skin that drinks and breathes, a body that naps for entire seasons, a life that starts as a fish and ends as a leaper, can we really call the frog a simple creature? Or is it something much, much more, like a perfectly adapted survivor? Definitely something to think about next time you see one. Thanks for tuning in.